As just as I'm about to start my podcast, suddenly the sports has started behind me, and in the series about how what happens when you start doing an outside broadcast. That's a really good example. All of a sudden, you can hear there is a sports day going on with the school there in the background, just as I've actually started. Well, good morning to you. So today is the 6th of June, 2024. The time now is about 11:30. Outside temperature is about 16 degrees, and it's a sunny day so far. I think the weather is going to be chopping and changing, so it looks like it's going to be a nice day today. It doesn't look like my colleagues will be, they might just turn up late, but I will continue regardless. Today, 6th of June 2024, 11:30 a.m. Location is Finsbury Park, London, England, United Kingdom, Europe. And yeah, today's the 6th, so there's a gigantic celebration going on at the moment over there in Normandy and in one of the coastline of Britain, commemorating the 80th year of the D-Day invasion from the Allies of Europe. In fact, they were fighting to take back what the Germans have taken. And so there's lots of celebration. It's actually really amazing that some of the people actually commemorating are literally touching their hundreds. Some of them are over their hundreds. The average is around probably 90. And actually, you can't be average of 90, because then if it's 80 years ago, if you're average of 90, then you would have been 10 years old when you're in the war. So the average person who's there from the war is average is about 100 years, But I haven't paid too much attention to details of the patrons who have turned up, but most of their family, probably some of their wives and daughters and sons and grandsons are there to pay tribute. Unfortunately, one group, one side that's not mentioned is actually Russia. Russia is a frenemy at the moment. That word frenemy, term used by my friends who usually use that term when they were friends at one time and they've turned enemies. So at the moment there's a war going on in Ukraine, where Russia is trying to acquire territory, and therefore Russia has been blacklisted by the European supporting world. One of the things, there's many sanctions against Russia from the European supporting countries in order, well, it's a war thing, And what we're celebrating, 80 years of a war thing, D-Day. So Russia played a part. The main players, Canada, America, and the UK. And I believe there's other players as well, probably Australian. And when I hear this term the the Commonwealth office giving statements about D-Day, and I'm thinking, well, there was 200, it's around 200 members. No, there can't be 200 members of the Commonwealth, because there is about 200 countries in the world, or 200 recognized states. In fact, it's not even 200, it's 189 or something. I don't know whether occupied territory is recognized in that officially, and I don't know whether, depending on which side you look at it, whether you're pure pro-European or pro, I don't know what the other side is. You know, whether you recognize the occupied territory in Palestine. But yes, there's a hot war in Ukraine at the moment, where people are actually killing and bombing themselves, and missiles and drones have been fired into Russia. You know, so there's a hot war. So whereas Russia and the leader Putin is the president of Russia, he's been blacklisted in that sense, or ignored, or sanctioned, or disregarded, because he is at war with a pro-European country, which is Ukraine. So the West is on the side of Ukraine, specifically NATO, the NATO aligned country, America and Britain, against Russia. So there's a hot war going on, but we are celebrating a moment in a strategic moment in the Second World War, the D-Day landing, the D-Day, where Russia was part of, because Russia on the other side of Germany, and remember, it was Germany under Hitler we were fighting against. And the other thing is that when the war had finished, the Second World War had finished, I really don't know what the details were, but the West, or America and Russia, there was some disagreement. So that's why Germany was split into two, East and West, and we had a wall that separated the East and West, East and West Germany, and Russia controlled one side, and Europe and Britain and America controlled the other side. This is Germany after the Second World War, and it was only about 20 years ago. It was called the fall of the Berlin Wall. The fall of the Berlin Wall, where the wall was taken down and East and West Germany was united. And Germany in Europe is a super economic power and doing many things. I think Germany before was always a super economic power. You know, we have German cars, which are highly prestigious cars, BMW, Mercedes. I'm not quite too sure about the Mercedes-Benz. You see that word Mercedes-Benz, and then we had the Bentley. I don't fully know the story behind that, but Germany is a powerhouse for economics, and a good example is actually the cars. Other things, not so much to mine, but still. But I knew, and also Germany was very good in electronics, because when I first started in the 70s, when I was at school, studying electronics, a lot of the parts actually came from Germany. Mollard, one of the transistors, one of the first set of transistors, the company Mollard was German, and that range of transistors was world renowned. But now we're in different leaps and bounds in technology. I don't know where we have a processor, a CPU called ARMS, right, which is used in small portable systems. And the company that I believe came up with the design of that was actually in Cambridge, a company in ARMS, which recently, I think within the last 5 years, had been bought out by investment companies from the US. But here's the funny thing: it's not manufactured. The processors are not manufactured in the US. It's actually manufactured in China. And even though Taiwan was once a manufacturing hub for the European and American economy, as in processors and electronics, consumer electronics, you know, so Taiwan, Korea was once a place of manufacture. Before that, Hong Kong was a place of manufacturing. If I could remember, it was usually really cheap and tacky stuff used to come from Hong Kong. But now mainland China is where a lot of our electronics, companies like the Apple company has a lot of their manufacturing stuff in China, and a lot of the technology, I think people like Dyson, right? Because if you are an industrialist or a capitalist, you would try and get your product made at the cheapest price, at the best quality, anywhere in the world. Not only the free flow of money, right? Money, but also where you can manufacture the cheapest. So a lot of the companies, the big major manufacturing companies, would have their products manufactured in China because it's cheaper. The skill level, the manufacturing quality, the cost are really low. And China itself must be going through a kind of amazing change at the moment, and because we have a lot of people in rural China who live their rural farming lifestyle to move towards the city to actually work in a factory, whether it's a high-tech factory or whether actually it's not so much garments, right? And the place that produced those garments is actually in India. So a lot of our consumer fashion over here in the UK is actually made and manufactured in India. So, and then again, that is the byproduct of companies who want to manufacture at the cheapest price, you know, with the maximum amount of profit when they sell it to the European consumers, whether it's mainland Europe, the EU, or whether it's England, or whether it is America, or whether it's the Commonwealth countries, the English-speaking countries around the world, which was part of the British Empire, and now they are flowing to be more independent of the British Empire. There is, however, 14 territories which are British dependent territories, which means these territories are as sacred as the mainland UK. These are not independent of the UK. They are called independent territories, funny enough. But and so some of those territories, part of their main income is based on offshore banking. You know, Cayman Islands, Turk and Caicos, I think that's one of them. The Caribbean is Montserrat. Montserrat had a volcano that erupted a good few years ago that just wiped out everything on the island. And if you saw, Britain was there to rescue, because it is still a colony, and the people on Montserrat has just as much rights as us here in the UK, because it's a British dependent territory. There's still the tip of Spain there, that territory actually. And what's interesting, how that relates to British dependent territory, is that with this Rwanda thing about deporting migrants from England, who had illegally entered the UK into Rwanda and processed in Rwanda. Now, this actually goes into the whole war thing about territory. Now, here's an interesting question. With the West support of Israel and the massacre of the Palestinian people, would Britain take in Palestinian refugees? Would America take in Palestinian refugees? This is the juxtaposition, and yet our countries here in the West, UK and America mainly, and other European countries, they are helping Israel, financing Israel, assisting Israel in what is happening in Gaza, you know. And meanwhile, that's still a hot war. Also recently, the international community, now you see, the international community again to me is split up. Are you pro, I don't know what you call the other side, right? But are you pro Western, and the Western side, Europe and England, the UK and America, is on the side of Israel, where the rest of the world, mainly the Arab world and the third world, some of the countries in Africa, you know, they, because the leader in Israel has been designated, there's an international warrant for war crimes out on him. And I picked up a feed that Bernie Sanders, one of the outstanding American politician, has stood up and said, you know, why is America hosting Netanyahu, the leader of Israel, when there is an international war crimes warrant out for his arrest, you know? And here is what is a little bit of an irony. We're celebrating the 80th year commemoration of the D-Day landing. After the Second World War, we have had the human rights. This is when the Human Rights Charter was formed, and also the International Court for Human Rights, and the court that tries people for war crimes, and even the leader who was in was it the eastern state Yugoslavia, the breakup of that part, he was arrested and charged in the war crimes. Even Taylor, who assisted, I think it was from Libya, who assisted the war in Sierra Leone 20 or so years ago. Taylor was convicted of war crimes or funding rebels who were fighting in Sierra Leone, and as far as I know, he's actually in prison in the UK, in Durham. And somebody pointed out to me that is also Tony Blair's constituency, you know. And if we don't talk about the Iraq War and what happened to Libya, you know. But today we're focusing on the 80th year of commemorating the D-Day landing, you know. Well, Russia being an outcast, Russia today also has its, because Russia has been cut out from the G7, yeah, of the top economic countries in the world, G7. Russia has decided to have its own economic forum, which starts today in St. Petersburg, and I just did a quick little news thing on it, where I found that people attending was China, India, DRC, and other states. So I think the people attending that can be perceived as being the other side of the line when it comes to the war we have in Ukraine, the war we have in the South Bank, in Gaza, in the Palestinian territory. You know, Israel was created in 1948. There's still a big debate about the existence of Israel, you know, and that is all I'm gonna say for the moment on that. Interesting, yesterday, Finsbury Park, I happened to run into a street team of people who actually who up and down in the streets late at night, during the day, looking for homeless people, and they're funded by Haringe, and they help people to get off the street. They help people to get off addiction, and they're called BUBIC, bringing back into the community. There you go. See, I ran into them yesterday. I told them today I was going to do a podcast. So what they do, I mean, they're based in Haringe. So they have various projects and various volunteers and various people. They're based in, well, one of the addresses here is, all right, they've got many addresses. One of the addresses here is 9 Goose Grove, Tottenham, London, N17 6RA. I guess that's where they're based. Yep, FedExpress guy there. many been placed product placement in many movies. So FedEx, product placement. Yeah. So back to BUBIC. Bring the unity back into the community. Bringing the unity back into the community. So it sounds like, yeah, I mean, reading through this, so one or two of the people who are part of this group have actually had problems with drugs and alcohol and being homeless, and they now help run this organization, and they're out on the streets. Talking to people and trying to bring them in from the cold, from being out on the streets. They've got various volunteers and various specialists that actually help with the homeless and people with problems and people with drug problems, and that kind of problem, being on the streets, being homeless, drug problems, emotional problems, mental health problems. So it's good to know. I mean, Ola, who was in the last podcast last week, was actually talking about Haringey and the lack of some of the facilities. She perceived the lack of facilities. So amazingly, this is one of the organizations that literally yesterday I ran into them, or they ran into me. I was actually sitting there on the bench with a couple of people. One they knew well, two had a lot of problems, and me, the third, is the social media. I did invite them. I told them I was doing this podcast, but so right. So we are deep into the politics of election, and interestingly enough, what is being said is that the latest hook, or the latest controversy, whether you call it or not, is about the Labour Party, the Conservatives saying that the Labour Party is going to tax you an extra £2,000 a year. And somebody who's updated that, they said, well, it's £2,000 over 5 years, which is the term of the Parliament of, when you win, you get 5 years, right? But I remember, again, going back, it was the same strategy that was being used by the Conservative, and I remember the poster saying Labour's tax bomb. Now look, doesn't matter who's in, right? You'll be paying more taxes anyway. Your council tax, the average council tax is £2,000 a year, right? Now, if you go back 5 or 10 years, it was probably £500, right? So 10 years ago, your council tax was like about £500. Now it's like £2,000. That's the average. Some people pay more, some people pay less, right? That's a tax, right? Everything has gone up in price, right? Your food's gone up in price, right? So tax got to be paid on that. Your gas and electricity has gone up in price. Your telecommunication has gone up, right? Your phone bill, you got to pay tax on that. That goes to the government. If you run a car now, that's doubled within the last 10 years, right? In car insurance, it's doubled. Any financial services, it's doubled. I remember one person said recently, I heard they said that they are paying an extra £6,000 a year. Was it a year or a month? Right? Because the interest rate has gone up from like 0.25% to, that's the government interest rate, from 0.25% to, I think it's 5.25% now. But if you have a mortgage, the mortgage is much higher than that. So it's like around 6% now. So he's saying he's paying like an extra £6,000 a year. So that's it. That's perceived as a tax. The petrol prices has gone up. Right? There's a tremendous amount of tax. I mean, as far as I know, we pay like 75%, from 50 to 75% is of what we pay for fuel is basic tax. And I remember one chancellor says we're not going to increase the petrol price by they have this special accumulator. Every year of the budget, I think we have two budgets now. We have a spring budget and we have an autumn budget. Every budget, cigarette goes up in price, alcohol goes up in price, other things go up in price. Maybe there may be a little respite or a little cut in maybe it was stamp duty, because the housing had slowed down. So they give people an incentive by cutting the stamp duty, and so that would increase that will give people the incentive to buy houses. Now there's a generation of people who can't buy and would never buy, and if they did buy, the mortgage would run into the next lifetime, not about what they live in this lifetime, but the next lifetime. So the whole thing is changing. If you try buying a car, right? If you're told or you're pushed to buy an electric car, a brand new electric car is 40 to 60,000 pounds for a car. I remember when it was like 12,000. You know, the two of the biggest things you buy in your life, one is a house and two is a car. You know, and a lot of the expense on the car goes in taxes. So why is it that you're fooled every day and you're pointed in a direction that it's somebody else's fault that taxes go up? It doesn't matter which government that is in, taxes go up, prices go up. In order for the government to pay for the services, hospital, police, education, right? Taxes has to go up. You know, council tax has to go up. There are some councils are in special measures at the moment. One of them is Birmingham. You've forgotten. Just a few months back, Birmingham is in special measures because it can't meet its bills. And what do councils have to do in order to raise money to meet his bills? Raise your council tax. It don't matter who is in. Your taxes will go up because prices do go up every day, every week. Companies, year on year, if they don't increase their profit by 5 or 10%, they consider that to be a loss, right? Why are you fooled every day, right? Tax, in order, your wages has to go up. Prices double every 10 years. That's why the government can never pay its bill. American government can never pay its bill, right? Every year around a certain time, there's always this thing that in America that the Congress has to stop. They have to pass a bill in order to increase the national debt. That means borrowing money or printing money. I remember the last government when it was said that the borrowing over a certain amount of time would actually go down. The payment for this borrowing debt of the country would go down. Guess what? It hasn't. It's gone up. They've borrowed more money, right? They've got the ratio of the payment for this debt we have, national debt that we have in relation to the GDP, it's something like 98%, right? I think in America it's like 100% of GDP. It's like you'll never pay the debt, right? Now at the interest rate, the compound interest rate of this debt, you will actually never catch it up, right? And there's some people here, the generations in this country, who economically, look, first of all, the call them the Gen Z. They've got student debt, first of all, right? The interest, I don't know what the interest rate on that is, right? So they leave college and education with a debt. When they go to, when they get a little bit older, it's really out of their reach now. It's really out of their reach now to buy a house, right? What they're earning, you see, inflation and the cost of living has far exceeded what people actually earns in relation to what you can afford. And it's all about the free market, it's all about capitalism, and we'll have some people fooling you that the reason why you're having a hard time or hard problem is because people who are on boats trying to get into this country to better their lives. And here is another catch. These people who are on boats trying to get into this country are here to work, to earn money for a better life for themselves, for their offsprings, for their family. And yet British industry in all sectors have a lack of manpower. People don't want to do these menial, mundane jobs, right, with minimum wage, because the indigenous population of England has been miseducated to think that Britain used to rule the world, Britain is superior, we don't have to do anything, whereas it used to take all the wealth and minerals from the countries of the Commonwealth. It cannot do that anymore. Indirectly it does from industries and deals and manufacturers who are British companies, right? Now the British people has to pay, because those of you who are not working, those of you who are on some benefit for your incapacity or invalidity, you're being attacked now to get out there and do those jobs that the foreigners who are kicking down the door to get in don't mind doing. But now you folks who are sick, who can't work, you're now being attacked to go out there and work. And talking about war, did I hear correctly that there's going to be a subscription where if you're a certain age you've got to join the military? Because the situations of wars around the world, and one just on a hop and skip jump away over there in Ukraine, is very close to us, and we will have to recruit soldiers to go and fight in a war or wars that is probably closer to us or coming in the future, you know, because of the way things are. But here's what, the wars of the future are not like what we are celebrating in Normandy, the D-Day. These are high-tech wars with high-tech equipment, with drones, with pilotless planes, with almost Iron Man and Terminator-like robotics, which has been developed at the moment, which people are developing. It was about 20 years ago, someone was talking to me about military strategy, and it was about how long you last on the battlefield before you're killed, and it was something like 3 minutes. Within 3 minutes you'll be dead. You'll be identified, high tech, whether it's satellite, whether it's by the equipment that you're carrying, whether it's by infrared, whether it's by radar, whether it's by drone. And in that scenario, as soon as you enter the battlefield, you're marked, you're a target, and whatever high-tech or intelligent weapon, it will fly and blow you up. And so this traditional warfare does not exist anymore. You know, men with guns and bazookas on their shoulder doesn't exist anymore. The weapons are very, very much more intelligent. We got heat-seeking, infrared, sound. It will go after the sound, the sound of the helicopter blade, the heat coming up from the engine. Even infrared or infrared, you'll be identified on the battlefield, and the weapon will target and take you out. Just as intelligent as the drones that they have today, that once programmed using GPS. And that's another funny thing. The GPS system that is used to guide the missiles was initially done by the military, but it cost so much. The government said that, listen, there has to be some civilian use for that, and therefore we got sat navs, we got equipment that could tell us precisely which part of the world that we're at. We got so much satellites, so much different sets of satellites, even some by some of the tech giants spinning around. At any one time, you've got at least a couple of satellites which can actually precisely target you and tell you exactly where you are. These GPS devices you have can tell you where you are anywhere on the globe, and if you're tagged with a GPS device, then a smart piece of armory will track you down and take you out. So the warfare of the future is very, very, very much different. You don't even need to be on the battlefield. In fact, it is more deadlier than you think. In fact, you don't even have to leave. You don't have to leave home to go to war. Before you leave, you're a target, and on both sides they're aware of that. But it's kind of funny that in Ukraine they're fighting a traditional war. And here is what the thing is: we don't really know much. It is still secret about what tanks they have, what guns they have, what missiles they have, what helicopters they have, what planes they have, what ammunition they have, what kind of guns they have. It's still a secret. That information is kept away from the general public. I think we will be horrified and mortified You know, one of the things that Lady Di, Princess Di, was campaigning about is that these landmines, whether they have a limited life or they're there forever. There's still some places in the world where after the war, the landmines are still in the ground and people are losing arms and limbs from these unexploded, well, these landmines. They're active. They're active forever. So I don't know what the Geneva Convention is on landmines. They've got landmines, I know, that would spring up to body height or waist height above and then explode. You imagine what that does to you. Whether that is ruled illegal, right? Then we have things like laser weapons, and we have you know, weapons that, let's say lasers, the same kind of lasers we see in industry that cuts through metal. If you put that on the battlefield, you know, ECM, electronic magnetic pulse, you know, if these things are dropped in any situation, it knocks out the electronics in all electronic devices, including civilian phones, satellite, communication, power. Everything is linked. Warfare today is a completely different game, and the people are ignorant. Some people are ignorant of that, you know. So today is a day of commemorating war, commemorating a courageous day in the history. You know, we've had the First World War, we had the Second World War, we've had many skirmishes. Nam, we've had there was a war in Korea. You know, there's still a couple of wars going on in the Gulf states, right, which we don't hear much about, and it slowly fades. But yet people are concentrating on what the politician says to you, that Labour would increase your tax by £2,000. Everybody increases your tax. It don't matter which government is in. And again, the government can never pay the bills.